advertising and marketing is essentially about math and behavioral psych. Okay? So Mondami, who just got elected mayor of New York, openly as a socialist, undeniably as an anti-Semite, with New York having the highest Jewish population of any place other than Israel. He carried roughly 80% of, uh, of women under the age of 50. Mm-hmm. So all the young women in all the boroughs, 80%, which is remarkable because he's even anti-woman. Mm-hmm. But if you want a study in the application of behavioral psych, then go back. It's now all on YouTube, and kind of watch the invention of and the selling of Mondami. And most of the socialists in the past in America, because we've always had them, with the exception of FDR, who hid it until he was president, most of the socialists in America have always been weirdos. Okay? Think Bernie Sanders, okay, which would be one everybody would be familiar with. But if you went back, we've always had 2 or 3 of them, including one of them running for president every time. The Democrat Socialist Party of America is not new. It's been here. And they were all like Bernie or worse. You know, they were all weird, Einstein kind of hairstyles and corduroy pants with a mismatched corduroy jacket with patches on it. And, you know, they were weirdo characters. Mm-hmm. And from the very start then, it was very hard for them to sell themselves beyond a really small segment of the population. They were not packaged right for any sort of majority acceptance. Mm-hmm. They really didn't even seek it. But so if you look at him now, here you have a well-packaged, age, appearance, sort of a made for TikTok candidate, and a articulate candidate, a wisely unapologetic for outrageous positions candidate, okay? And he was successful entirely based on fundamental behavioral psych. Okay? So all advertising and all marketing is about math. The math of what you're doing has to work. Okay? And often people have bad math. It's a whole nother subject. And then it has to sync with the behavioral psychology of the creature you are trying to attract, right? So the reason that, let's say, a Kern or a Russell would do by preference online works is it matches up with a certain psychology of a certain segment of the market. The reason it doesn't work, which is never talked about with segments of the market, is that it is not matched with their behavioral psych, with their modus operandi for buying things, right? So there's, and Mondami's an example, there's a big age split in how trust affects buying. Okay? Kind of the younger you go. So like in the Mondami campaign, Cuomo ran a terrible campaign, and Cuomo was, of course, a terrible candidate, right? However, he only lost by 9 points. Now that's a lot, but it's not insurmountable. And he kind of got his butt in gear only in the last 2 weeks. I think if he had got his butt in gear 5 weeks out instead of 2 weeks out, or there'd been another 2 weeks, I actually think he would have won. But Cuomo's argument essentially of resume, experience to do the job, right? It doesn't work with like 40 and under. So like, they don't think anything of doing online banking. There's no bank. SoFi, where is the bank? And where are the branches? Well, they don't care, right? And they don't care how long it's been in business. Nobody even asks. Okay? And it just appeared. It was made up. It's online, and they don't care. Right? Now, if you leap to, say, my father, even if he were still alive, and even if you back this whole thing up 10 years so he could still be alive, there is no way in hell that he is going to deal with a bank that doesn't have a branch that he can go to and know Harriet. It ain't happening. Now in the middle, you got me and 60-year-olds and even the majority of 50-year-olds who are at least uncomfortable with online banking and with not having a branch to go to where they know Harriet. Hence you see Capital One, which for a while was drifting towards being online, swing all the way back to really pushing branches. Because if you want money, the money is all held by people 50 and up, right? The 30-year-olds are worried about an account that will give them their paycheck 15 days ahead of time and have no overdraft fees, right? The 50-year-olds who have all the money, they don't care about that. So when you, so what, like a Russell or that era of internet digital creatures, Yannick, Frank, etc., what is entirely natural to them is also natural to a significant segment of the population. It matches, okay? Quick, fast, big promise, building up trust for it, not really necessary. Okay? The resume that used to be a requirement, right? And so everybody that didn't have one really struggled to create one until they had it, right? So Cuomo had a big resume, with some flaws in it, but a big resume. Mondami had no resume, none, right? One job, an alderman, that's it, okay? But this is not, okay? Now, Trump had a resume, but no political resume, okay? And see, Jeb Bush was supposed to be the nominee because he had the best resume. And to everybody's shock and surprise, right, the public could be made not to care about that, right? It could be overridden by other things. Now, on the other hand, okay, Trump had a lot of time to build up trust in Trump. Not necessarily a political resume, but first of all, a public familiarity, thanks to being on TV with 2 hit shows for 8 years. You can't beat it. Okay? And he was good at that, which helped. And he was a known, people could describe him, hugely successful real estate developer. He built all these buildings. So people had a concept of him, right? To a certain segment of the market, you don't even need that. Right? However, you leave out another big segment of the market. So when internet marketing was in its infancy and was sort of becoming a thing, all the way to the point that that era, who are now becoming the elders, Russell Yannick, et cetera, began working with it and began selling it. Okay? I had 2 clients. I had a company partly owned by Guthrie-Renker that sold website stores in an internet mall. Okay? And I had Corey Rudel, who had a company called the Internet Marketing Center, and really sold full-blown internet marketing coaching and website development and traffic and all of that for whatever business you had. And if you didn't have one, here's 20 choices of things you might want to do. So to Corey's shock and surprise, we used, and we're just ramping it up when Corey died. But to his shock and surprise, a 8-page sales letter in a booklet format was kicking ass and taking names. And we were just ramping it up. And there were a lot of lists available at the time that it would work with. And it was bringing people through the doors who you would never get with the online marketing of the same thing, because they weren't there, they weren't responding to it. If they were using it at all, they were using it as a communication device, but that's it. So it sold being an internet marketer to people who were 20 years away from that idea occurring to them on their own. The web store in the mall was somewhat a ludicrous concept. But because it was so familiar, so it was familiarity. You put people in a room who on their own would never think to Google this or to go search for it or to come to a webinar about it, but they would come to a physical room, and that behavior they already had. Okay? They came to get rich in real estate seminars in a room. If they were a chiropractor, they came to chiropractor seminars in a room. If they were a dentist, etc. So that behavior they already had and could be induced to simply repeat it. And then they were shown the internet as if it was real. So you know what a store is. Well, the website that we'll build for you is a store. It has a door, it has a window, it has stuff to buy, it has a choreographed path it's a store, okay? And you already know what a mall is. It's where everybody goes to shop. And there's stores for everything. There's even competing stores, and they all flourish. You don't need to be the only jewelry store. You could be one of 30 jewelry stores. That's my talking Disney clock. Sorry, but it goes off every hour. And it announces the wrong hour, and it can't be fixed. So it's a goofy clock. So this we got from Steve Jobs. Because when Jobs showed you the Mac, he made it as familiar as he possibly could, right? You filed things in little file folders. You still do, okay? My Mac, I put things in file folders, and you type what's going to be on the top of the, right? So I understand that intuitively, right? I don't have to know anything about computers or internet to get that. Oh, this thing's a giant filing cabinet with unlimited capacity, and I no longer have to go buy big horizontal files at Office Max. Okay, I get that, right? And he put a wastebasket on there where you throw stuff out, okay? I get that, right? I've already got a wastebasket. I use it, okay? And so we did the same thing. We turned the internet into two things that everybody already understood, right? Store, mall, right? And we actually sold certificates, your leases for your stores, which could be built out immediately or could be built out anytime over the next 3 years, right? As you figured out your business and you got ready. Then on the back of that, of course, we sold coaching. So, and you could have more than one store, and you probably should. So store, 3-pack, 6-pack, X thousands of dollars per store, a room could produce a great deal of money. So different segments of the market either get captured or they get left out by the media and process decisions you make. Now, you raised the issue of massive chaos. Okay? The number of choices, the number of things the entrepreneur, the marketer is being told to do, right, has exploded thanks to online media. And the confusion level of what should I do and what shouldn't I do is enormous, right? And a bunch of people are sitting around thinking up another one to put in front of you every day, right? I mean, so you can't even keep up with it anymore. There's Instagram, of course, but there's 16 different things that you can do on Instagram. There's YouTube. There's a lot of stuff you can do on YouTube. There's TikTok. There's this and this and this and this and this, and so people are like nuts, right? And then if you add in all the offline options, which you should, and you add in broadcast, radio and TV, and even that is now, it's like splintered off, right? So there was radio, but now there's radio, there's satellite radio, okay? There's used to, maybe you're a little local business, you used to pay for the placemats for the diner and have your advertising on the placemats at the diner. Or I used to get a business to go pay for the pizza boxes so they could have the inside lid, right? But now that pizza shop and that diner, they got a website and they got an e-zine and they got an Instagram, they got, and you can go try to use all that media. So there's a lot of paralysis. There's a lot of hip hopping. Do this, and next week, oh, I see this. So I stop doing this, and I run over here and do this. So there's a lot of tactical action with no strategy governing it at all, right? And it's driving business owners nuts. And if you have the bandwidth to do everything, that you're probably a big company. You have a room of people, right, doing this, and a room of people doing, I mean, TikTok's a full-time job if you're going to do it right. And so you need a team of people who are just TikTokers, right? And the small business, the guy with 3 healthcare practices, see, he is not in this position. So you have got to narrow choices, and you have got to be willing to ignore and not participate in and not necessarily be attracted by everything you see other people, even authorities, doing. It's not that they're wrong about it, but it's not necessarily appropriate for you, right? There's nothing wrong with skinny jeans if you're skinny, right? They're pretty inappropriate for a BBW, a big, beautiful woman, should not be squeezing herself into a pair of skinny jeans, right? So the same deal is true here. So the question is, how do you narrow your focus? So number one, you narrow it by the behavioral psychology of your target, of who you want as a customer, client, patient, or donor, who you best match with by affinity, by product utility, by benefits, by everything. Who is the person who, if they discover you, their reaction is, where has this been all my life? And man, this is my guy, or this is my gal, right? So you have to know what will produce that reaction, right? And that will narrow things a lot, because every target group has places they go and places they don't go. They have media that they pay attention to, and in many cases assign credibility to or believability to, and they have media that they don't pay attention to, right? There is some media everybody pays attention to, but generally speaking, you can't afford it, right? So live sports television, 8 of the top 10 rated shows last year was a live sports broadcast, and 7 of those was the NFL. Okay, so, but you're not going to run a Super Bowl ad for the thing you started online, and the only thing you're doing for it right now is cheap Facebook ads. Even you're not going to go mortgage your house in order to run one Super Bowl commercial, and if you do, you're not very smart. You got to have a whole ecosystem organized now around that to make that pay. Sponsor, NFL media, et cetera. So you got to know what your target audience pays attention to, okay? And you got to narrow. So like High Point University is advertising on TV. I got them to start doing TV. They are entirely on Fox Business and CNBC. Kids don't watch that. Okay? High school kids are not, well, some these days, but mostly high school kids are not watching Fox Business. Okay? They're just not, right? However, HPU's avatar parent, who is going to write the check and is going to have some influence over what colleges we go look at, right? They are. That's where they are. That they're there, and they're there every day. And a lot of them are there first thing in the morning, and a lot of them are there at the end of the day, and they're not there in the middle. Okay? So they're there first thing in the morning because the market opens, and they're paying attention to what's happening today in the market, right? And what's driving it. And gee, maybe I should even make a portfolio decision, right? One of the 2 phone calls that just interrupted your video is to call the main person I deal with on my stock and bond and ETF portfolio. And so there's something she thinks I should do today. I'm not going to do it, but so they're there then. Then they actually have jobs. They have businesses, So the viewership drops dramatically. It picks up a little during the lunch hour, and it comes down again. But 5 o'clock, come home, first martini of the evening, again, right? The viewership swells. Okay? So they're buying those networks, and they're buying that time slot repetitively. Okay? Now, my criticism, I didn't get them to do direct response. They're doing brand building. But even that will be a rising tide that lifts other boats. So now you got to build an ecosystem around this. So if you're going to play the game of, okay, I'm seen here, and I'm brand building, I'm identifying who we are and what we are all about, which they're not shy. You kind of get it. Faith, family, country, Okay? If you're looking for a college where they're going to be turned into a little socialist, this ain't the place, right? But now you need an ecosystem so that the same person who sees you there sees you over here, and sees you over here, and sees you over here in all the places they go and media they consume. And then your direct response, which HPU does a lot of direct response, online and offline, a lot of direct mail and a lot of online media. Now it works better. Okay? It's like jet fueled because of this, right? Oh yeah, I've seen these guys here, here, and here. I wonder what they have to say, right? And so HPU publishes a magazine that the students do, the journalism students do. The magazine is for parents and alumni, but it's also a marketing piece of collateral. Where is it distributed? Only in private jet terminals. There's a magazine rack in private jet terminals for magazines that are only made to go in private jet terminals. There is a, of course, travel magazine that is there. These are big coffee table-like magazines. There's a travel magazine, logical, of course. There's a magazine called Business Traveler, which is only there, and it's global. There's a watches and collectibles magazine, okay? And there's High Point University. Okay? There's also a leadership magazine, which is pay to play. So the articles in it about certain CEOs and entrepreneurs have all been paid for. And then there's some like short articles. You might write one, I might write one. We pay to have it placed there. Every issue of that magazine has at least one article about High Point University, a High Point University grad, etc. And High Point University has the back cover. So they're in private air terminals twice. Okay? They're trying to cross the same person. So one way you narrow, now it's important, they're only on Fox Business and CNBC. They are not on the NFL Network. They are not on ABC. They are not, no, they're there, right? They're not even in Forbes magazine. They are here, okay? So they have narrowed their media by exactly who do we want to reach and where the hell are they? What are they paying attention to? Okay? And that's one way to narrow your focus. Obviously, local, regional, national, global imposes some narrowing of focus, right? The next way to narrow your focus is your resources. There's no point in being in media so seldom that you don't build recognition and familiarity, even with pure direct response. So Fisher Investments is the biggest single advertiser in the money management industry. You cannot watch business TV and not see Fisher ads, a lot of them. They don't miss a day. They don't do it for a week, lay off for 3 weeks, and come back next month and do it. No, they are there incessantly. And 90% of the ads are pure direct response, info first. Here's who we are, here's what we do, here's your 3 retirement guides that you gotta have, right? one of the ads, I mean, I've seen them so often, I can almost, I can do them, They changed from like criticizing people who own mutual funds to, if you've built your retirement wealth with mutual funds, that's fine, but now may be time to graduate to a higher and more sophisticated level of investing. Boom, you need these 3 guides. Guide number 1 is about this, guide number 2 is about this, guide number 3 is about this, and we want to send you these guides. As long as they keep the real young ones out of the department, they're not going to switch to, you can go read these digital guides because they want the full contact information, because they're going to mail to you, not just email to you, until they get you to schedule an appointment with a Fisher advisor. Okay? Now they're getting my book, No BS Brand Building by Direct Response. That's what they've done, and that's what they're doing. They're a highly recognized brand at this point. Okay? But they didn't really spend a penny doing that. They spent all their money getting direct response that they could sell to, and they built the brand as a happy byproduct. They didn't spend a dime on it, right? And that's the marriage of the two.
If you want to learn from the greatest marketing minds of our generation, then subscribe to our channel and check out these videos.